Boss's son fired me once he was the new CEO, then begged when customers left with me. I sacrificed my 20s building that company into a powerhouse, turning it from nothing into a multi-million-dollar empire through sheer dedication and 80-hour work weeks. Only for the boss's entitled son to fire me on his second day as CEO because I dared to question his brilliant ideas. You won't believe what happened when 60% of their clients abandoned ship to follow me, leaving him desperately crawling back to beg for my help. But why did seeing him on his knees, his father's legacy crumbling around him, feel like the sweetest victory I never wanted? The promotion envelope sat on Director Morrison's desk like a ticking bomb, and for 3 years I'd defused every explosive situation this department threw at me. Working overtime without complaint, covering for absent colleagues, salvaging deals everyone else abandoned. That senior manager position had my name written all over it. Daniel, excellent work on the Patterson account. Morrison beamed during our morning meeting, holding up the contract I'd negotiated. $22 million over 3 years. Simply outstanding. My colleagues nodded appreciatively, except for one person. Brad Vincent, the director's nephew, slouched in his chair scrolling through his phone. Fresh out of business school 6 months ago, Brad had already burned through 2 assistants and cost us 3 minor clients with his arrogance. But family connections kept him bulletproof. The meeting progressed through quarterly projections when Morrison finally picked up the promotion envelope. My pulse quickened. 3 other candidates sat around the table, but based on performance metrics alone, this wasn't even a contest. As you all know, the senior manager position comes with significant responsibilities. Morrison began. The board has reviewed all applications thoroughly. Brad suddenly perked up, sliding his phone into his pocket. Strange, considering he hadn't even submitted an application. After careful consideration, Morrison continued, his eyes avoiding mine. I'm pleased to announce our new senior manager, Brad Vincent. The words hung in the air like poison gas. My coffee mug froze halfway to my lips. Around the table, shocked expressions mirrored my own disbelief, except for Brad, who was already shaking Morrison's hand. Director Morrison, Brad caught himself, grinning. I won't let you down. Hold on. I found my voice. Brad didn't even apply for this position. I've seen the application list. Morrison shifted uncomfortably. Brad's application was submitted through internal channels. His unique perspective and fresh ideas align perfectly with our future vision. Fresh ideas? Sarah from accounting interjected. He lost us the Riverside account last month by showing up drunk to their presentation. That's enough, Morrison snapped. The decision is final. Meeting adjourned. As everyone filed out, I remained seated. Morrison busied himself with papers, avoiding eye contact. Ray, I said quietly, we've worked together for 9 years. You know my track record. Daniel, you're a valuable employee, he mumbled. But Brad brings different qualities. You mean he brings DNA that matches yours? Morrison's face reddened. Watch your tone. Brad earned this position. By doing what exactly? Name one successful project he's completed. This discussion is over. Morrison stood abruptly. Accept the decision or find employment elsewhere. That evening, I sat in my home office surrounded by performance reviews, sales reports, and client testimonials, 3 years of documented excellence. My phone buzzed with messages from colleagues expressing their shock. But one text stood out, from Lisa in HR. Check your email. Unofficial heads up. Brad's personnel file was altered yesterday. His failures were scrubbed clean. I opened my laptop and found Lisa's forwarded documents. Brad's original file showed 6 formal complaints, 2 lost clients, and a harassment warning. The revised version painted him as a model employee. My hands trembled as I dialed my lawyer friend, Marcus. They can't do this, Marcus said after I explained. Document everything. Start recording conversations. One-party consent is legal in our state. I feel like I'm going crazy, I admitted. 9 years of loyalty, and this is how they repay me? Nepotism is ugly but not always illegal, Marcus replied. However, falsifying personnel records? That's different. Be careful, but be smart. The next morning, I arrived early with a digital recorder in my pocket. Brad had already moved into the senior manager office, his feet propped on the mahogany desk. "Morning, Danny boy," he called out as I passed. "No hard feelings about yesterday, right? Tell you what, grab me a coffee, and we'll call it even." I stopped and turned. "I'm not your assistant, Brad." "Actually," he smirked. "According to the new organizational chart, you kind of are. Senior managers oversee all account executives. That includes you." The recorder captured every word as Brad outlined his vision for the department's longer hours, fewer benefits, and a new commission structure that favored him exclusively. "One more thing," he added. "That Patterson deal you closed? I'll be taking over that relationship. Client FaceTime is a senior manager responsibility now." "I've worked with Patterson for 2 years," I protested. "They specifically requested me as their point person." "Yeah, well, things change. I already called them this morning. Told them you'd been reassigned due to performance issues." "What?" My voice rose. "You told them I had performance issues?" Brad laughed. "Relax, I smoothed it over. Said you were getting extra training. Under my supervision, of course." That afternoon, I found my computer access restricted. Projects I'd managed for years suddenly required Brad's approval. Emails from clients were being redirected to his inbox. "System upgrade," IT explained when I called. "New security protocols from management." By day's end, I'd recorded 3 more conversations, Brad taking credit for my work, Morrison brushing off my concerns, and an HR representative claiming no knowledge of the personnel file alterations. Walking to my car, I found Brad leaning against it, cigarette dangling from his lips. "Word of advice," he said, blowing smoke in my direction. "Uncle Ray and I had dinner last night. He mentioned you've been asking questions, making waves." "Just trying to understand the new structure," I replied evenly. "Here's what you need to understand." Brad stepped closer. "This company runs on relationships. Blood relationships. You can either accept that or update your resume. Is that a threat? It's reality. You think your little sales numbers matter? I've got something you'll never have. The right last name." As Brad walked away, I touched the recorder in my pocket. Every word captured, every threat documented. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with printed emails, recorded conversations, and a growing file of evidence. My phone rang. Patterson himself. "Daniel, what's this about performance issues? Brad Vincent called saying you're under review." "John, I need to be careful what I say, but that information is inaccurate." "I don't care what internal politics are happening," Patterson said firmly. "You're our guy. If Sterling Corp can't guarantee that, we'll need to reconsider our contract." After hanging up, I stared at the evidence before me. 9 years of building relationships, earning trust, proving my worth, all being systematically destroyed by nepotism and lies. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd underestimated me. Opening my laptop, I began typing, "Documentation log, day 1. 2 weeks into Brad's reign of incompetence. The department was hemorrhaging talent and clients faster than a severed artery." The recorder in my pocket had captured enough evidence to sink a battleship, but timing would be everything. Monday morning arrived with an emergency all-hands meeting. The conference room buzzed with nervous energy as Morrison stood beside his nephew, both wearing identical fake smiles. "Team, I know there have been some adjustments lately," Morrison began, "but change is necessary for growth." Brad stepped forward, designer suit wrinkled from what smelled like another late night at the bars. "Effective immediately, we're implementing new performance metrics. Everyone will submit daily activity reports directly to me." "Daily reports?" Michael from sales spoke up. "That's 5 hours of paperwork per week." "Success requires sacrifice," Brad replied, his bloodshot eyes scanning the room. "Anyone who can't handle it should consider whether they belong here." The recorder captured every word as Brad outlined his draconian new policies: mandatory overtime without compensation, slashed expense accounts, and a commission structure that funneled most earnings upward. Questions? Brad asked, daring anyone to speak. I raised my hand. What about existing client relationships? Many of us have spent years building trust. Client relationships belong to the company, not individuals. Brad smirked. I'll be personally reviewing all major accounts. After the meeting, I found Sarah from accounting crying in the break room. 20% pay cut, she whispered. I've got 2 kids in college. How am I supposed to manage? Document everything, I told her quietly. Keep records of all communications. That afternoon, Brad summoned me to his office. Awards I'd earned over the years had been removed from the walls, replaced with his fraternity photos and a mounted fish. Sit down, Daniel, he commanded, feet propped on the desk. We need to discuss your attitude. My attitude? This resistance to change. It's poisoning the team. He leaned forward, breath reeking of alcohol despite it being 2 p.m. I know you wanted this position, but sometimes life isn't fair. Is that what you told Patterson when you called him again this morning? Brad's eyes narrowed. How did you know about that? He called me afterward. Said you offered him a 30% discount if he'd stop requesting me as his account manager. Business is business, Brad shrugged. Besides, I've got something better for you, the Wilkins account. I almost laughed. Wilkins Construction was our smallest client, worth maybe 5% of Patterson's billing. You're reassigning me from a $22 million account to a $300,000 one? Consider it a fresh start, Brad smiled coldly. Unless you'd prefer no accounts at all? The recorder captured his barely veiled threat. That evening, I met with 5 other senior employees at a quiet restaurant downtown. The stories they shared painted an even darker picture. He's accessing our computers after hours, Janet from IT whispered, copying files, reading private emails. Morrison knows everything, added Robert from legal. But he just says Brad needs time to find his footing. Found these in the shred bin. Mike slid papers across the table. Looks like they're planning to eliminate half our positions by year-end. I studied the documents, a restructuring plan that would gut experienced staff while creating new positions for Brad's college buddies. Wednesday brought another disaster. Brad had attempted to negotiate with our biggest client, Techron Industries, and somehow managed to insult their CEO's wife during a dinner meeting. She looked older than him. Brad defended himself when Morrison called an emergency meeting. How was I supposed to know she was his wife and not his mother? The wedding ring might have been a clue, I muttered. You got something to say? Brad wheeled on me. Just that Techron represents 40% of our revenue. Maybe sending someone who can't distinguish between wives and mothers wasn't optimal. Morrison's face reddened. Daniel, that's enough. Brad was showing initiative. Initiative? I stood up. He's lost us 6 clients in 2 weeks. Sarah's crying in the bathroom. Mike's updating his resume. Half the department is shopping for new jobs. If people want to leave, let them, Brad snapped. We'll hire hungry graduates who appreciate opportunity. You mean hire your frat brothers? The words escaped before I could stop them. The room went silent. Morrison's face turned purple. My office. Now, he growled. Behind closed doors, Morrison didn't hold back. You're on thin ice, Daniel. One more outburst and you're gone. Ray, he's destroying everything we built. You know this. He's family, Morrison said flatly. And he's learning. At what cost? We'll lose Techron. Patterson's already looking elsewhere. 9 years I've been here, and you'll be gone in 9 seconds if you don't fall in line, Morrison interrupted. This is your final warning. I reached into my pocket, feeling the recorder. I need this in writing. What? My final warning. I want it documented. Morrison's eyes narrowed suspiciously, but he typed up a formal warning letter. As I signed it, I made sure to read key portions aloud for the recording. Thursday morning, I arrived to find my office locked. A sticky note on the door read, "See Brad." In his office, Brad lounged with his feet up, tossing a stress ball between his hands. Danny boy, we're making some space adjustments. You'll be moving to the cubicle farm. I'm a senior account executive. I need an office for client meetings. Was a senior account executive, Brad corrected. Your new title is account coordinator. Less responsibility, more supervision. You're demoting me? Restructuring, he smiled. Same salary for now. But hey, look at the bright side, you're closer to the coffee machine. I found my belongings already boxed and moved to a cramped cubicle near the restrooms. The symbolism wasn't subtle. That afternoon, Patterson called demanding to speak with me. Brad intercepted the call. Mr. Patterson, Daniel's been reassigned. I'll be handling your account personally. What do you mean you'll terminate the contract? Let's not be hasty. Yes, I understand your position, but I heard Brad's voice rising from his office, growing more desperate. 20 minutes later, he stormed out. This is your fault, he shouted, pointing at me. You poisoned them against me. I haven't spoken to Patterson in 3 days, I replied calmly. You told me not to. Don't play innocent. I know you're behind this. Morrison appeared, face ashen. What's happening? Patterson's pulling their contract, Brad admitted. Effective immediately. The color drained from Morrison's face. That's 30% of our revenue. It's sabotage, Brad insisted. Daniel's been undermining me. I've been sitting in this cubicle following orders, I responded. How could I undermine anything? That evening, as I packed up my cubicle, the recorder had captured 8 hours of damning evidence. Brad's meltdown, Morrison's panic, and something unexpected, a conversation between them when they thought the office was empty. You said he'd accept the demotion and quit, Morrison's voice whispered from the recording. He's tougher than expected, Brad replied. But don't worry, I've got plans for tomorrow. By Monday, Daniel Reed will be nothing but a memory. Sitting in my car, I played back the recording. Tomorrow would bring whatever Brad had planned, but I had plans of my own. My phone buzzed with texts from former clients expressing concern about the chaos at Sterling Corporation. 3 competitors had reached out with job offers, but running away wasn't my style. I looked at the building where I'd spent 9 years building my career. Tomorrow, Brad would make his move, but he had no idea what was coming. Friday morning's sunrise painted the Sterling Corp building in deceptive golden light as security guards changed shifts. My phone buzzed at 6 a.m. with a text from an unknown number. Check your email. You'll want to see this before going in. A friend. The email contained a single attachment. Termination under draft.doc. Dated for today. Already signed by Morrison and Brad. The reason listed? Gross misconduct and client interference. They planned to fire me in 3 hours. My hands steady despite the adrenaline surge. I forwarded the document to my personal email and Marcus, my lawyer. Then I called Patterson. John, I need to warn you about something happening at Sterling today. Daniel? It's barely dawn. What's wrong? They're terminating me at 9. But there's more. I have evidence of fraudulent activity that affects your contract. Silence, then. I'm listening. 20 minutes later, I sat in Patterson's office as he reviewed the recorded conversations on my laptop. His expression darkened with each revelation. They falsified personnel records, threatened employees, and this Brad fellow has been drinking during client calls. Everything's documented, I confirmed. But once they fire me, I lose access to internal systems. Your contract could be manipulated. Patterson picked up his phone. Martha? Emergency board meeting in 30 minutes. Yes, all executives. Code red priority. The Sterling Corp parking lot filled earlier than usual. Brad's Porsche screeched into his reserved spot at 7:45, music blaring. Through the lobby windows, I watched him stride past security, cocky and unaware. At 8:30, I entered through the side entrance, recorder running. The building hummed with unusual activity. Security guards stationed at every exit. HR personnel huddled in whispered conferences. Brad's assistant, Melissa, caught my arm. Daniel, don't go to your desk. Brad's got building security waiting. What's happening? Something big. Morrison's been on calls since 7. Board members keep arriving. I thanked her and headed to the IT department instead. Janet looked up nervously from her computer. Daniel, you shouldn't be here. There's a termination order. I know. Janet, I need you to check something. Can you see who's been accessing personnel files after hours? Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Oh my God. Brad's login shows hundreds of unauthorized file modifications. Employment records, performance reviews, even payroll data. Print everything. Now. As pages spilled from the printer, commotion erupted in the hallway. Brad's voice boomed. Where is he? The meeting's in 10 minutes. Security guards jogged past, radios crackling. I grabbed the printouts and slipped into the emergency stairwell, climbing to the executive floor. The boardroom doors stood open. Inside, 12 board members sat stone-faced as Morrison paced nervously. Brad lounged in a chair, checking his phone. Ah, Daniel. Brad jumped up as I entered. Perfect timing. We have some paperwork for you. I'm sure you do. I walked to the center of the room, placing my laptop on the conference table. But first, the board might want to hear these. Morrison stepped forward. This is a private termination meeting. You can't. Actually, a voice interrupted from the doorway. He can. Patterson entered with 3 other major clients, Techron's CEO, Quantum Systems president, and MediaTek chairman. Combined, they represented 60% of Sterling's revenue. What's going on? Morrison sputtered. We're here about serious allegations, Patterson announced. Fraud, falsification of records, and breach of fiduciary duty. The blood drained from Brad's face. This is ridiculous. Uncle Ray, tell them. Let's hear the evidence, the board chairman interjected. For the next 40 minutes, I played recordings that painted a damning picture. Brad's slurred threats, Morrison's complicity, the conspiracy to eliminate experienced staff. The falsified personnel records appeared on screen, Janet's analysis showing systematic manipulation. This is illegal, Brad shouted. You can't record without permission. One-party consent state. Robert from legal corrected quietly. Completely admissible. The board chairman turned to Morrison. Is this accurate? You promoted your nephew despite his lack of qualifications. Morrison's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Brad tried to leave, but security blocked the door. There's more, I continued, connecting my laptop to the projector. Email evidence showing plans to sell client data to competitors. Gasps filled the room as internal emails displayed Brad's scheme to auction confidential client information. The amount of money involved made even veteran board members blanch. Enough, the chairman declared. Mr. Vincent, Mr. Morrison, you're both suspended pending investigation. Security will escort you out. You can't do this. Brad lunged toward me. This is entrapment. My uncle built this company. 2 guards restrained him as Morrison slumped in his chair, looking every bit his age. Your uncle built it, Patterson said coldly. You tried to destroy it. As security led them away, Brad's final words echoed. This isn't over. Reed, I'll sue you into bankruptcy. The boardroom fell silent. 12 board members, for major clients, and I remained. Mr. Reed, the chairman began. We owe you an apology, and possibly a promotion. I don't want apologies, I replied. I want Sterling Corp to remember what it stands for. The chairman nodded thoughtfully. The senior manager position is obviously vacant. The board would like to offer it to you, with full restoration of your previous responsibilities. I looked around the room, at the clients who'd stood by me, at board members who'd finally seen the truth. I'll accept on 3 conditions. First, full back pay for all affected employees. Second, an independent audit of all Brad's transactions. Third, a written ethics policy preventing nepotism in promotions. Done. The chairman agreed immediately. Anything else? I smiled for the first time in weeks. Yes, my office better still have those awards on the walls. Laughter rippled through the room, nervous energy releasing into relief. That afternoon, as news spread through the building, Employees emerged from cubicles and offices. Sarah from accounting hugged me in the hallway. Mike from sales shook my hand repeatedly. Even security guards nodded with respect. In my restored office, awards back on walls, nameplate reading Senior Manager, I found a gift basket from the Patterson account. The card read, "Integrity isn't just a word. Thank you for reminding us why we chose Sterling Corporation." My phone buzzed with messages from colleagues, competitors offering jobs, and media outlets seeking comments. But one text stood out. "Son, I heard what happened. Your mother and I are proud. Sometimes standing up costs everything, but silence costs more. Dad." As sunset painted the city skyline, I stood at my window reflecting on the day's events. Brad and Morrison faced criminal investigations. The company would undergo massive restructuring. But Sterling Corp would survive, perhaps stronger for the trial. The recorder that had captured so much corruption sat silent on my desk. Evidence of how quickly power corrupts, how easily integrity erodes, how vital it becomes to document truth in a world of lies. Monday would bring new challenges, rebuilding trust, implementing changes, healing a fractured workplace. But tonight, I simply appreciated the view from an office I'd earned through merit, not manipulation. Sometimes the promotion you fight for isn't the one you deserve. Sometimes it's better. 3 months into my role as senior manager, Sterling Corp's transformation exceeded even optimistic projections. Revenue climbed 18%. Employee satisfaction surveys showed remarkable improvement. The toxic culture Brad and Morrison cultivated was slowly healing. But wounds that deep don't disappear overnight. "Daniel, we have a problem." Janet from IT burst into my office on a Tuesday morning. "Someone's been attempting to hack our systems. Multiple breach attempts since midnight." I studied the security logs she provided. The attacks targeted specific files, personnel records, financial data, and most concerning, our client database. "Can you trace the source?" "Working on it, but they're using sophisticated VPN chains." This isn't amateur work. That afternoon brought more troubling news. Robert from legal appeared with a thick manila folder. "Brad's filed a wrongful termination lawsuit," he announced, claiming defamation, conspiracy, and get this, theft of intellectual property. "Theft? Of what?" "He says the client relationships you maintained were his ideas. He's seeking $20 million in damages." I almost laughed at the absurdity. His ideas? He lasted 3 weeks and lost 6 clients. It gets worse. He subpoenaed your personal devices, claiming you stole company data. Judge Harriman signed off this morning. The implications hit immediately. My personal laptop contained the recordings, evidence that saved Sterling Corp but could be twisted by skilled lawyers. When's the hearing? Thursday, 48 hours. That evening, I met with Marcus at his law office. Papers covered every surface as we prepared our defense. "Brad's lawyer is Richard Blackstone," Marcus explained. "Corporate shark wins through intimidation. He'll paint you as a disgruntled employee who orchestrated Morrison's downfall. But the evidence can be spun. Selectively edited recordings, entrapment, corporate espionage. Juries eat that narrative up." We worked until sunrise, building counter-arguments and organizing documentation. But something nagged at me. The timing of the lawsuit and hacking attempts felt connected. Wednesday brought confirmation. Janet burst in again, laptop in hand. "Got him." The hacker made one mistake, a momentary VPN dropout. The IP traced to a downtown address. She showed me the location. My blood chilled. That's Blackstone's law firm. The pieces clicked together. Brad wasn't just suing. He was actively trying to destroy evidence while creating new narratives. If he accessed our systems, he could plant false data to support his claims. "Lock down everything," I ordered. "Double authentication, offline backups, the works." That afternoon, an unexpected visitor appeared. Morrison, looking decades older than 3 months ago, stood in my doorway. "May I come in?" I gestured to a chair. He sat heavily, age showing in every movement. "I'm not here to apologize," he began. "What's done is done." "But Brad..." He's lost himself completely. Your nephew is suing for $20 million. Morrison nodded sadly. He's staying with questionable people, drinking heavily, talking about revenge constantly. His lawyer, Blackstone, they met at a casino. Brad owes significant gambling debts. Why tell me this? Because I built this company on integrity, even if I forgot that toward the end. Brad's planning something bigger than a lawsuit. He's been meeting with our competitors, shopping information. What kind of information? Client lists, proprietary processes, 5-year strategic plans. Everything he could memorize or photograph before security escorted him out. The full scope of Brad's vendetta crystallized. Legal attacks, cyber warfare, and now corporate espionage. Will you testify to this? Morrison hesitated, then nodded. I failed this company once. Not again. Thursday's hearing arrived with unexpected drama. The courthouse steps swarmed with media. Brad had leaked the story, painting himself as a whistleblower exposing corporate corruption. Inside, Judge Harriman presided over a packed courtroom. Brad sat with Blackstone, designer suit impeccable, playing the wronged executive perfectly. Your Honor, Blackstone began. My client was targeted by a vindictive subordinate who illegally recorded private conversations and manipulated evidence to orchestrate a coup. For 2 hours, Blackstone wove a masterful narrative. Brad testified with practiced emotion about his innovative vision being sabotaged by entrenched employees resistant to change. Then came our turn. Defense calls Raymond Morrison. Gasps rippled through the gallery as Morrison took the stand. Brad's confident facade cracked. Uncle Ray, he whispered, what are you doing? Morrison's testimony was devastating. He detailed Brad's true performance, the falsified records, the nepotism that motivated the promotion. When he revealed Brad's plans to sell company secrets, even Blackstone looked shaken. Mr. Morrison, Marcus asked, why testify against your own nephew? Because truth matters more than blood, Morrison replied, voice steady. I forgot that once. Never again. The judge called a recess. In the hallway, Brad cornered his uncle. How could you? He snarled. Family means nothing to you? Family means everything, Morrison replied sadly. That's why I'm stopping you from destroying yourself completely. When court resumed, I presented the security logs showing hacking attempts from Blackstone's firm. The judge's expression darkened. Mr. Blackstone, are you aware that attempting to access computer systems without authorization is a federal crime? Blackstone stammered denials, but damage was done. His association with the hacking attempts tainted Brad's entire case. The judge's ruling was swift and brutal. Plaintiff's claims are dismissed with prejudice. Furthermore, this court refers evidence of potential cyber crimes to federal authorities for investigation. Brad erupted. This is corruption. You're all protecting him because he played your game. Security moved to restrain him, but Brad lunged at me first. You destroyed everything. My future, my family, everything. You destroyed yourself? I replied calmly as guards pulled him away. I just documented it. Outside the courthouse, media swarmed, but I pushed through without comment. Victory felt hollow when watching someone self-destruct so completely. Back at Sterling Corp., employees gathered in the lobby. As I entered, applause erupted not for winning a lawsuit, but for protecting their livelihoods from a predator. Patricia from HR approached with an envelope. The board met during the hearing. Unanimous decision. Inside, a single page bore the title Chief Operations Officer above my name. The promotion I'd originally sought paled beside this recognition. That evening, I found Morrison cleaning out his office, not fired, but retiring voluntarily. I'm proud of you, he said simply. You showed more integrity in 3 months than I did in 30 years. We all lose our way sometimes. He smiled sadly. Brad called from jail. Federal charges for the hacking conspiracy. Facing 5 years minimum. I'm sorry. Don't be. Prison might save his life. Force him to face consequences finally. Morrison picked up a photo from his desk, him and Brad at graduation. I enabled his worst instincts. That's my real crime. Weeks later, Sterling Corp flourished under new leadership. Clients returned, profits soared, and most importantly, trust rebuilt. The toxic culture that nearly destroyed us became a cautionary tale in business schools. Brad's story ended predictably: conviction, imprisonment, and eventually, grudging acceptance of responsibility. Morrison visited him weekly, rebuilding their relationship on honesty rather than enablement. Standing in my new office, I kept the recorder on display, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. Power corrupts subtly, through small compromises and justified exceptions. But truth, documented and defended, remains the greatest weapon against tyranny in any form. The promotion stolen through nepotism ultimately led to justice served through integrity. Sometimes losing what we think we deserve leads us to earn something far greater. 6 months into my role as COO, the anonymous letter appeared under my office door at 5:47 a.m., slipped beneath the wood while security cameras mysteriously malfunctioned. Written in block letters on expensive stationery, it contained just 15 words. "You think you won? The game isn't over. Watch your back. Friends of Brad Vincent." My hands trembled slightly as I photographed the threat before calling security. Within an hour, Sterling Corp's lobby resembled a crime scene. Police officers dusting for fingerprints, security reviewing footage, employees whispering nervously in clusters. Detective Sarah Mills examined the letter with professional detachment. "Any idea who these friends might be?" "Brad's serving 3 years for corporate espionage and cybercrimes," I replied. But he had connections in the business community, people who believed his version of events. "We'll increase patrols around the building and your home. Meanwhile, document everything unusual: calls, emails, people following you." That afternoon brought the first attack. Our company's social media accounts suddenly flooded with accusations, screenshots of fabricated emails showing me supposedly selling client data, doctored photos at suspicious meetings, fake testimonies from anonymous former employees. The coordinated assault felt professional, methodical. "They're using bot farms," Janet from IT reported, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "Thousands of fake accounts spreading these lies simultaneously. Someone paid serious money for this. Can you trace the source?" "Working on it, but they're routing through multiple foreign servers. This is sophisticated stuff, not amateur hour." The damage accumulated quickly. 3 clients called expressing concern. A major partnership negotiation stalled. Our stock price dipped 4% in 2 hours as investors reacted to the social media storm. Board Chairman William Foster summoned me to an emergency meeting. The usually supportive board now wore expressions of concern and doubt. "Daniel, we need to address these allegations," Foster began carefully. "Even if they're false, perception becomes reality in the market. You're suggesting I step down? A temporary leave of absence, until this blows over." "That's exactly what they want," I protested. "Stepping down admits guilt for crimes I didn't commit." Board member Patricia Chun leaned forward. "Then give us something to work with. Who's behind this?" "Follow the money. Someone's funding this campaign. Professional social media manipulation, coordinated attacks, sophisticated technology. This costs hundreds of thousands." The meeting ended without resolution, but I felt the board's confidence wavering. Walking back to my office, I passed employees who avoided eye contact. The whispered conversations stopped when I approached. Doubt had poisoned the atmosphere I'd worked so hard to improve. That evening, an unexpected ally emerged. Sitting in my home office reviewing security footage, my doorbell rang. Through the peephole stood Morrison, Brad's uncle, the man whose nepotism started everything. "May I come in? I have information you need." Over coffee in my kitchen, Morrison revealed disturbing developments. Brad's been communicating from prison, using other inmates' phone privileges, coded letters to the outside. He's built a network of sympathizers, people who lost money when Sterling stock dipped during the scandal, executives from competitor companies we outmaneuvered, even some former employees he convinced were wronged. "You're still in contact with him?" "I visit weekly, trying to help him find redemption instead of revenge. But he's consumed by hatred for you. blames you for everything, his imprisonment, his disgrace, even my testimony against him. Morrison pulled out a wrinkled paper. Found this in his cell during my last visit. Guard let me photograph it before Brad noticed. The document outlined a complex strategy, Operation Payback. Phase 1, character assassination through social media. Phase 2, plant evidence of financial crimes. Phase 3, physical intimidation. Phase 4, total destruction of reputation and career. We're in Phase 1, I realized. This is just the beginning. There's more. Brad mentioned a guardian angel funding everything. Someone with deep pockets and a grudge against Sterling Corporation. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every shadow seemed threatening, every noise suspicious. At 3 a.m., my phone buzzed with a blocked number. Enjoying the show, Daniel? The voice was digitally altered but dripped with malice. This is just the appetizer. Ready for the main course. Who is this? Someone who knows the truth about you. The ambitious climber who destroyed a good man to steal his position. But don't worry, justice is coming. The line went dead. I immediately called Detective Mills, played her the recording. She promised increased protection but warned me to vary my routines. Avoid predictable patterns. The next morning exposed Phase 2's beginning. Janet burst into my office, laptop clutched tightly. Someone's been inserting falsified transactions into our financial systems. Small amounts, but consistent, making it look like you've been embezzling for months. How deep does it go? 7-figure total spread across dozens of hidden accounts. If I hadn't been running deep diagnostics after yesterday's attacks, we might have missed it for weeks. The sophistication impressed even as it terrified. Whoever orchestrated this understood Sterling Corp systems intimately, an inside job, or someone with insider knowledge. Can you trace the code injection points? Already on it. But Daniel, if this gets to the authorities before we can prove it's fabricated. I know. Federal investigation, frozen assets, criminal charges. The trap was elegant in its simplicity. An emergency IT meeting revealed more disturbing details. The falsified transactions used my legitimate access codes but originated from IP addresses I'd never visited. Timestamps showed activity during meetings where dozens of witnesses could verify my presence elsewhere. It's like someone cloned your digital identity, Robert from Legal observed. Sophisticated enough to fool initial investigations but with breadcrumbs leading back to you. Patricia from HR entered, face grave. We have a bigger problem. 3 employees filed complaints this morning, claiming you've been pressuring them for kickbacks on vendor contracts. That's absurd. Which employees? She named them, all recent hires, all with connections to Brad's old fraternity network. The pieces clicked together. They're plants, hired during the expansion, waiting for activation. Can you prove that? Give me time. Their employment records, background checks, references, something won't add up. But time was a luxury we didn't have. By noon, news outlets picked up the story. Sterling Corp COO under investigation for embezzlement blazed across business channels. Stock price plummeted. Board members called demanding explanations. In the chaos, I almost missed the envelope slipped under my door. Inside, a single photo, my sister Sarah leaving her apartment, unaware of being photographed. The message on the back chilled my blood. Phase 3 begins tonight. Family is everything, right? I called Sarah immediately. Pack a bag. You're staying with Mom and Dad for a while. Daniel, what's wrong? Just trust me, please. Detective Mills took the threat seriously, assigning protection details to my family members. But the psychological damage was done. They'd shown they could reach anyone I cared about. That evening brought unexpected visitors. 3 men in expensive suits waited in Sterling Corp's lobby, FBI credentials displayed prominently. Agent Richardson, the lead, introduced himself. We need to discuss the embezzlement allegations. I'm being framed, I began. That's what they all say, but we're more interested in who's framing you and why. Richardson's knowing look suggested deeper investigations already underway. Brad Vincent's prison communications have been monitored since day one. We know about the network, the funding source, everything. Then why haven't you acted? Because we want the puppet master, not just the puppets. Someone's spending millions to destroy you. That's not personal vendetta money. That's strategic investment. The pieces started forming a larger picture. This wasn't just about Brad's revenge anymore. You think a competitor is using Brad's hatred as cover? Quantum Dynamics lost a $50 million contract to Sterling Corp last quarter. Their CEO, Marcus Webb, has connections to Brad's lawyer, Blackstone. Webb's also majority stakeholder in the PR firm managing this smear campaign. The scope of the conspiracy dwarfed my worst fears. A major competitor weaponizing personal vendettas for corporate warfare. What do you need from me? Play along. Let them think they're winning. We need them overconfident, making mistakes. The next week tested every ounce of my resolve. False evidence mounted. Media coverage intensified. Employees resigned. Clients canceled contracts. The board formally requested my resignation, though Foster privately apologized, admitting their hands were tied by shareholder pressure. Through it all, I maintained innocence while secretly working with FBI agents. We documented every attack, traced every digital breadcrumb, recorded every threatening call. The evidence pile grew, but we needed the smoking gun. Direct proof linking Webb to Brad's operation came from an unexpected source. Melissa, Brad's former assistant, reached out through encrypted channels. "I can't stand by anymore," her message read. Brad had me forward emails to a private server before his arrest. I kept copies. They show everything. We met at a small cafe downtown, FBI agents posing as customers at nearby tables. Melissa's hands shook as she handed over a flash drive. Webb visited Brad 3 times before the arrest. Promised to fund his revenge if Brad provided inside information on Sterling's expansion plans. It's all here: emails, recorded conversations, financial transfers. Why come forward now? Because innocent people are getting hurt. Your family, employees who had nothing to do with this. It's gone too far. The FBI moved swiftly. Dawn raids hit Quantum Dynamics, Webb's home, the PR firm's offices. Arrests followed Webb, several executives, the planted employees at Sterling. The network collapsed like dominoes. In prison, Brad learned about the raids through news coverage. According to Morrison, he broke down completely, realizing he'd been used as a tool in someone else's war. 3 days later, I stood before Sterling Corp's employees in the main auditorium. The truth had emerged. My name cleared, but damage remained. Trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild. I addressed the packed room. I don't blame anyone who doubted. The evidence seemed overwhelming. But I hope we've all learned something about rushing to judgment, about the power of lies to destroy truth. The applause started slowly, then built to thunderous levels. Not just for my vindication, but for the revelation of how easily we'd all been manipulated. Webb faced 20 years for corporate espionage, fraud, and conspiracy. His company's stock crashed, executives fled, clients abandoned ship. The very fate he'd tried to engineer for Sterling had befallen Quantum Dynamics. Brad served his full sentence but emerged changed. Morrison reported a genuine transformation, acknowledgement of his crimes, acceptance of responsibility, commitment to making amends. He never contacted me directly, but through Morrison sent a single message: "I'm sorry for everything." 6 months after the conspiracy's collapse, I sat in my office walls, now decorated with new awards for crisis management and ethical leadership. The recorder that started everything still held its place of honor, joined now by the FBI commendation for assisting in exposing corporate corruption. Janet knocked, entering with her usual energy. "Remember those Phase 4 plans we never saw executed? I figured out what they intended." She showed me recovered files from Webb's server. Phase 4 wasn't just about destroying me. It aimed to position Quantum Dynamics for a hostile takeover of Sterling Corp once our stock bottomed out. They almost succeeded, I mused. Almost. But truth has a way of surfacing, especially when someone's brave enough to document it. That evening, I stood at my office window watching the city lights twinkle into existence. The anonymous letter that started this final battle sat framed on my desk, a reminder that victory often invites retaliation, that success breeds enmity, that integrity requires constant vigilance. My phone buzzed with a message from Patterson, our biggest client. Saw the news about Webb's sentencing. Glad justice prevailed. Sterling's lucky to have a COO who fights for what's right. Contract renewal documents attached. We're doubling our commitment. Below his signature, a postscript, P.S. Maybe consider writing a book. The recorder that saved a company has a nice ring to it. I smiled, powering down my computer for the night. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new tests of character. But tonight, I simply appreciated the view from a position earned through merit, defended with integrity, and strengthened by adversity. The promotion stolen through nepotism had led to justice served through documentation. The conspiracy born from revenge had died by the same weapon that exposed the original corruption: truth, carefully preserved and courageously presented. Walking to my car, I passed the security station where Carlos still worked his night shift. "Evening, Mr. Reed. Quiet night. The best kind, Carlos. The best kind." As I drove home, the recorder sat in my briefcase, no longer needed for protection, but kept as a talisman against forgetting. Power corrupts, ambition blinds, and revenge consumes. But truth, patiently documented and bravely defended, remains the greatest equalizer in any arena. Some promotions are stolen, others are earned. But the ones truly worth having are those defended against every force trying to tear them away. In the end, that's the only advancement that matters, the kind that survives every test and emerges stronger for the trial.